Cornwall, you can turn off your mic for now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second semifinals match of the JCSA High School Debate Competition 2023. Indeed, this is the second match of the day. Earlier today, we had the match Orchard High versus Montego Bay High School for Girls, in which the Montego Bay High School for Girls advanced to the finals. This match that we're having right now serves to determine who will be joining them November 20 at JCSA Park, located, of course, 31 Malines Road, which is the JCSA's own, very own center, where the grand finals of this debate will be held. Indeed, we're looking for the second finalist in this competition. Of note as well is that we'll be inviting the third place finishing team to come to the award ceremony to engage. Everything catered for, of course, and we'll be determining who the third place team is simply by the team and speaker points, by speaker points. So even if it is that you lose this match, you are a non-winning team, as I like to say, in this match, then there's still a chance that you'll be able to participate in the award ceremony and to witness the finals live if you, the non-winning team, have a superior number of points versus Orchard High, who would have competed earlier today. So that is what's up for grabs. Of course, the competition is sponsored by Ruby's Jamaica, who will be giving away prizes for best speaker as well as a sponsorship for the second place team. We have over $500,000 in cash, prizes, trophies, and awards to hand out at the finals. So the stakes are indeed high. The stakes are high indeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, with all that said, the teams that we have debating today are Cornwall College versus York Castle High. Two amazing teams. We've seen these teams battle it out throughout this competition, fight tooth and nail for where they are right now. And I know they're excited to get this debate on the way. I won't be here for much longer. I won't stall any longer. The motion for this, the second semifinals match of the JCSA High Schools Debate Competition reads, this house regrets the linkage of trade unions, for example, the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union and the National Workers Union, to political parties in Jamaica. This house regrets the linkage of trade unions to political parties in Jamaica. A lovely, lovely motion. We want to thank, of course, Ruby's Jamaica for sponsoring this competition and the Jamaica Civil Service Association, the owners of this competition, for empowering debate in our high schoolers. Ladies and gentlemen, with all that said, we now turn over to the first speaker from Cornwall College, who will be in proposition to open up this debate.
Good afternoon. You've disabled our video?
Indeed, I did. You feel free to start it back if you so desire. Feel free to start it.
We can. It says you've disabled it when we tried to start. Okay, am I audible?
Loud and clear.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so for timekeeping purposes, I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good day, everybody. Today, I stand before you as the first speaker of the House, proudly proposing the motion. This House regrets the linkage of trade unions, such as the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union and the National Workers Union, their linkages to political parties in Jamaica. Now, as the first speaker, I have a few tasks today. Firstly, I'll define some key terms in the motion. I'll define status quo and give some context for the debate. Then I'll get into my points. I'll provide 3 points, that being, firstly, the political parties will end up consuming the trade unions and bastardizing their values and beliefs. 2, the fact that politicization is inherently bad and it will be especially bad in trade unions. And thirdly, trade unions would have gained their influence regardless of their linkages to political parties, because that's just the way in which they were going. And then obviously I'll come and speak on the burdens, and then I'll close. Now, to define some key terms, a trade union at the base level is simply any organization who, under its constitution, regulates the relationships between workers and employers, workers and workers, and employers and employers. A political party is any organized group of people who acquire and exercise political power. And currently, for context, many trade unions, as we see them today, have blossomed from that have been the founding trade unions, yes, such as the BITU and the NWU. So, which both stemmed from the JLP and the PNP respectively. Whereas, thankfully, trade unions have begun to progress away from their deep political entrenchment in the status quo. Political parties often meddle with the activities of trade unions, and even where they are genuinely unencumbered, their political past mars them. Now, into my first point, which is the fact that trade unions likely would have progressed to become robust advocates in society without the support of political parties. Doris Hamilton Willie posits in her book that the condition in the Caribbean in the 1930s had been one where the workers had become increasingly intolerant to unsafe working conditions, unlivable wages, and aggressive treatment, meaning workers were bound to unionize and demand fair and equitable treatment from their employers. In fact, it is more true to say that the rush of support behind trade unionism is what catalyzed the development of political parties. Therefore, we've established that trade unions can exist without the support of political parties. This is because the universal experience of Jamaicans in battling for fair treatment is much more impactful than traditional political rhetoric, which can oftentimes be dogmatic, out of touch, and highly polarized. Secondly, politicization is inherently bad. Now, what do I mean by this? Whereas we acknowledge that trade unions and political parties progress in a familiar fashion with the same supporters and within the same time period, it must also be noted that as unions developed, they began to depart from heavy politicization. This independence granted them greater ability to bargain and buy for their people without the anchor
A point
of
of information.
Is that a point of information? I'll take it.
Okay, all right. So you mentioned something about the independence. So is it that the proposition has a theory or suggestion as to how trade unions will negotiate fair labor and wages in regards to political parties compromising the independence? Because better yet.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that. I'll just answer that once I'm finished, because that's a lot to take in right now. Okay, back to where I was. So the independence granted them greater ability to bargain and buy for their people without the anchor of bias and controversy. But my second speaker and third speaker will actually touch on that more. We notice a linear advancement with trade unions, where the less politicized and more inclusive they become, the more successful they are, which means we can surmise that politicization is bad, yes. We take the opposition's point that political parties also exist to safeguard the rights and interests of the people and promote good governance and better living nationally. But those good intentions are trumped by reality. Politics has followed dangerous tribalism and staunch polarism, which has imposed upon the Jamaican people a forced dichotomy of thought. Either you agree with me and you are right, or you disagree with me and you are wrong. Aside from the violence that dictamy has sparked, as Karen Dio at that time, political parties are also generally unreliable and fickle. To this day, the promises they make every 4 years, to this day, even with the promises they make every 4 years, yes? Why is this especially bad for the trade union? Well, promoting conflict within unions through dictamy, endorsing physical violence over disagreement, and making empty promises are not practices that will engender success in the trade union. Necessarily, to achieve results, trade unions must have a clear neutrality and obvious dedication to its workers, and not other political motives. Level-headed leaders that can remain focused on goals and a spirit of inclusivity such that as much people as possible benefit from the union. And now to sort of answer your POI, bargaining will work the same way, if not better in our world, yes? I'd like to see you try to explain why your point. This leads into my third point, which is the fact that political parties will inevitably consume the entirety of these trade unions and ruin their beliefs and values. Those bad practices and reprehensible values will be adapted in the trade unions when linkages are sustained. Now, the two main political parties in Jamaica may be considered some of the most influential institutions in the country, forming the overwhelming majority of the government, both local and central, and present in all public bodies and agencies. Wherever power is available, they will seize it to promote the providence of their party. Either political party is interested in bolstering their victories in local and general elections or achieving the goal manifestos, and will take all measures to bolster their presence in society. That mandate means wherever parties are given the chance, they will impose, not accepted at this point, they will impose themselves wholly on organizations and civil society. The Gleaner published an article on March 10th, 2022, highlighting the politicization. But let me just get into my burdens before I finish, right? To win this debate, the side proposition must prove two things. One, without political linkages, trade unions are better able to achieve their mandate of safeguarding the rights of workers. And then two, the heavy political linkages of trade unions stunts their growth and limits their capacity. Now, side opposition is going to fail to do any of this today, and hence they will lose this debate, as the basis of their arguments will most likely be that trade unions are a fundamental risk of succumbing to political corruption and easing potential benefits to workers. So, after everything you've heard from me today, don't be swayed by what you're going to hear from opposition. Cast your ballot in favor for side proposition. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the first proposition speaker. We now invite the first opposition speaker to open up the debate for that side of the House.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed adjudicators and members of the government. To respond to some points made by the first speaker of the proposition, it was stated that political parties will consume trade unions, but there is no evidence in this. There's no evidence in society or in Jamaican society. And also to respond to your point about trade unions being neutral, trade unions cannot stay neutral. Neutrality in the face of oppression is taking the side of the oppressor. Their goal is to ultimately take the side of their workers, so they cannot choose neutrality. Now, trade unions are the megaphones of workers, and political parties are the conduits through which their voices echo in the chambers of governance. The two go hand in hand. It is only reasonable to see a linkage between an organization whose primary focus is championing workers' rights and one who's vested with the responsibility of enacting policies and legislation that shape the socio-economic landscape. On this grounds, opposition is in great discord with the motion. This House regrets the linkage of trade unions to political parties in Jamaica. Throughout this debate, the opposition will expound on the historical context of trade unions, highlighting their linkage with political parties, how their association fosters economic stability and democratic participation. My deputy opposition leader will highlight how the linkage aids in the mobilization of the working class, strengthens collective bargaining power, and fosters a shared vision for society. And lastly, my opposition member will explore how the linkage leads to better communication between trade unions and the government, and how unified advocacy is created when trade unions and political parties align their efforts with broader social, not accepted, social and political movements. Trade unions were the forerunners of political parties in Jamaica. To enact meaningful policies regarding workers' rights, they had to form political parties to see that these policies were written into legislation. For example, in 1938, under the patronage of Sir Alexander Bustamante, the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union was affiliated with the Jamaica Labour Party and the National Workers Union, which had its connections with the People's National Party. Other examples include the Trinidad Working Men's Association, which led to the formation of the Trinidad Labour Party, and the Trade Union Congress being affiliated to the People's National Congress in Guyana. Before the emergence of trade unions, life for working class in Jamaica was characterized by a profound lack of rights and an enduring struggle for basic dignity. Even after the abolition of slavery, as apprentices, the formerly enslaved were further marginalized and were effectively deprived of the freedom to seek better wages for improved working conditions. These oppressive standards persisted for a century after the formal abolition of slavery. It wasn't until the introduction of politically backed trade unions that workers finally started to see improvements in their working conditions and their livelihood. The very beginning of the labor rights movement was crucial in empowering the formerly enslaved at that time. And through that movement, we as modern civilians enjoy many luxuries, some as simple as paid time off or the right to own land. If we were to regret that linkage, we would also be regretting the very thing that liberated many oppressed Jamaican workers in the post-colonial era. Secondly, the economic impact of this link is substantial, contributing to a more equitable distribution of wealth. Studies affirm that organized and politically influential workers enhance financial stability and growth in the century. Supported by data from the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, unionized workers in the country earn higher wages and enjoy better access to benefits like healthcare and pensions compared to their non-unionized counterparts. This statistical evidence underscores the positive correlation between the link strengthened by labor unions and political power, emphasizing its pivotal role in fostering a fair and prosperous labor landscape in Jamaica. Such benefits would be challenging without a solid political backing by political parties. Recent statistics affirm the success of this collaborative model, showcasing a significant decrease in unemployment rate by approximately 15% over the past 5 years. This tangible outcome accentuates the positive impacts of sustainable economic development and collaboration between trade unions and political parties, emphasizing their joint contribution to creating more job opportunities for the workforce in Jamaica. There's also evidence to support the positive impact of the link between political parties and trade unions on democracy. Aggregate level studies done by White Rose University demonstrate a statistical association between union density and voting turnout across nations and time. Individual level studies indicate that union members are more likely to vote than non-union members, contributing to increased political participation. Unions have historically played a crucial role in representing the interests of working people in the political system. Accepted?
Right, so it's very important to know that trade unions came before political parties, and whereas unions have maintained a specific worker-centered goals, parties have brought on other responsibilities and goals, which are kind of anti-worker. Unions are strictly pro-worker. Parties bring the threat of bringing anti-worker policies into trade unions.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Could you repeat, please?
Right, so whereas trade unions came before political parties, right? And trade unions have maintained their worker-centered goals. However, political parties have grown to take on other goals and objectives that are potentially anti-worker. Political parties bring the threat to bringing anti-worker policies into trade unions, which is more harmful than anything that you brought up.
I mean, when it comes to trade unions being linked to political parties, the aim isn't sort of to influence the trade unions. Trade unions is a vital role. You cannot enact any meaningful change without getting legislation. And to do that, you have to go to political parties and the government so that you can get these legislations enacted. Continuing. As unions strengthen their links to political parties, they shape party platforms to draw the interest and support of working class voters. Unions also directly intervene with political debates, countering the influence of business and advocating for the interests of working people. Contemporary political theorists such as Carol Pateman and Joshua Cohen essentially claim that an authoritarian workplace can hinder the development of qualities needed for democratic citizenship, and that since effective democratic citizenship is highly desirable, workplaces should themselves be democratic. Democracy in the workplace will have a positive spillover effect on broader political democracy and is desirable for this reason. Cohen develops this as what he terms the psychological support argument for workplace democracy. The psychological support argument holds that the extension of self-government into the traditionally undemocratic sphere of work contributes to both the formation of an active character and the development of a sense of common good, and thus contributes to a more fully democratic state. Involvement in trade unionism is a political activity. So it is only natural that trade unions should form a link with a political party. In conclusion, the linkage between trade unions and political parties is not something to regret, but something to celebrate. It has been a driving force behind significant improvements in workers' rights, economic stability, and democratic participation. The linkage between political parties and trade unions has created a more equitable and inclusive socioeconomic landscape, empowering workers and fostering a fair and prosperous labor environment. As we reflect on this historical context, it is evident that the link between trade unions and political parties has been a force for positive change, shaping the past and present in ways that benefit the working class and the democratic ideals we hold dear.
Very much. Thank you very much to the first speaker from the opposing team. We now invite the second speaker from Cornwall College to extend the debate on side proposition. We invite Cornwall College's second speaker to take the stage. So Cornwall College.
Yes, I'm here.
That's lovely.
All right, I'll begin in 3.
Before you begin, Cornwall College, in the interest of fairness, what we realize is that sometimes the audio chips out when the camera is on. So we're making an exception and allowing you to present with your cameras off so that the judges can hear clearly what you have to say.
Can you hear me better now?
Let's hope so. We're hearing you.
All right, I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. Good day to you all. To finish a point my first speaker made either, political parties interested in bolstering their victories in local and general elections, achieving the goals in their manifestos, and will take all measures to bolster their presence in society. That mandate means whether parties are given the chance to, they impose themselves wholly on organizations and civil society. The Gleaner published an article on March 10, 2022, highlighting the high politicization of school boards. Then president of the Jamaica Teachers Association and principal of William Memorial High School was quoted as saying,
Sorry, I just stopped because your cast said they weren't hearing. Are we still audible?
Indeed, indeed you are.
So, okay, could we reclaim our time from there, please?
Yes, I will allow you to restart your speech. Your Castle, can you confirm that you are now hearing Cornwall College?
We're hearing, but it's just a bit muffled.
I think that's a limitation that that we can't solve. I'll invite Cornwall College to speak a little bit louder, perhaps a little slower, so that it can come across clearly. And I invite your Castle to turn up whatever device they have, so we can work with the limitations that we have. Cornwall, when you're ready, we will restart your time.
okay, I will begin. Can you hear me now?
Yes, indeed.
Your Council. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. To finish a point my first speaker made, either political party is either interested in bolstering their victories in local and general elections, achieving the goals in their manifesto, and will take all measures to bolster their presence in society. That mandate means whatever party are given the chance to, they impose themselves wholly on organizations and civil society. The Gleaner published an article on March 10, 2022, highlighting the high politicization of school boards. Then president of the Jamaica Teachers Association and principal of William Memorial High School, was quoted as saying, when you have a qualified person, having somebody who really the best thing about them is that they are affiliated to either of the two parties. That's not something to move things in a time of crisis. If trade unions leave themselves open to the influence of political parties, the divergent political values and beliefs will overwhelm them. As I have explained, political parties are the more dominant force, as the first speaker has explained rather. Therefore, the linkage of trade unions to political parties stifles and the executive capacity of trade unions. Moreover, even unions have not been changed by political interests. Further endangers other bodies for a similar takeover. So, point about political parties harboring inherent negatives. Though proposition want to linger more on the topic of political parties having overwhelming negatives because they do. Political dichotomy negatively affects many things, like school boards, as my first speaker mentioned, and even the running of government. There's substantiality. However, the real question is whether these negatives outweigh any benefit that exists, and the answer is yes. The risk of these negative political practices threatening the success of trade unions is enough to regret the linkage. Moving into my first point, party linkages, alleviates group of workers that would have fought otherwise, which has detrimental effects. My first speech, and I'll explain on that idea later. The goal of protecting workers' rights must remain central in any trade union, whereas we acknowledge persons within the trade union may have different views and disagree on certain political values. The trade union must remind its members what the goal of the organization actually is. Similarly, members of the trade unions may have different views of such issues and plans to achieve benefits for workers that may be shared with either political party. However, it would be improper for the trade union to adopt a single view set and herald its supreme over others. As this preferential treatment would sow discord within the organizations, which could lead to its members from joining or dissuading employers from participating in negotiations with them due to their political affiliation. Trade and wholesome conversation such that solutions are the forced segregation and learn to isolate the rhetoric that exists within the union about workers' rights from which has to do with politics. This supplements my second point, which is that trade unions are better to be able to function with the political linkages. The Indian Journal of Industrial Relations published a research paper, D. Masdan et al., which clarified that although political trade union leaders are able to achieve some benefits as it regards lobbying governments for certain changes, they also fall victim to deep nepotism. These leaders also become highly opportunistic and often abandon or neglected posts to achieve political notoriety. On a point, while political linkages may open the avenue for the goals of trade unions to be accomplished through concentration, legalization, and government policy, the flip side is that it's governmental ostracism when trade unions don't bend to the desires of political parties. Streak and Hassel published a research paper in 2003 entitled Trade Unions as Political Actors, which exposed the issue of government despite the politicized trade unions, and that chose to diverge from the opinions of the party. Despite win trade unions and sometimes reverses the decades of work and progress. Moreover, the political linkages will alienate employers who, fearing biased treatment, become reluctant to engage in constructive dialogues with affiliated trade unions. This strained relationship, as evidenced by the decline rates of collective bargaining agreements, economic growth and stability. When trade unions are left to devise their own plans for development and change, they are better able to streamline their execution. In fact, as my first speaker would have clarified, in the 1930s and 1940s, when trade unions were at a fundamental stage in their development, although political arms and objectives began to form around trade unions, there was no overbearing pressure for them to conform to outward expectations and metrics which gave them the space to grow. To impose political motivations on trade unions would be tantamount to stunting them. The opposition is essentially arguing we should reverse the reverse speech is that the threat to the trade union, a change in values and government from the benefits of linkages. On the point, while political linkages may open the avenue for the goals of trade unions to be accomplished, though constitution, legalization, and government policy, the flip side of that is governmental ostracism when trade unions don't bend to the desires of political parties. In conclusion, the data is clear. Trade unions operate more effectively when independent of political affiliations. The linkage of trade unions to political parties not only compromises their ability to champion workers' rights, but also fuels internal divisions, alienating both workers and employers. As we move forward, let us consider the data and strive for a future where trade unions in Jamaica can flourish independently, working for the collective benefits for all stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the second speaker from Cornwall College. We are going to move on to the second speaker from York, but I will say that Cornwall College, your audio, it chips out intermittently. It crackles a lot and then it chips out and then there becomes parts that the judges struggle to hear. So while York Castle is presenting, I invite Cornwall College to attempt to solve that issue. What can help is perhaps disconnecting any other device in the vicinity that you have access to from the source of your internet connection. So if you have multiple devices connected to the Wi-Fi that this device is on, I encourage you to disconnect as many of them as possible to improve your bandwidth. All right. With that said, we invite York Castle High to extend the debate on the side opposition. As the second speaker from York Castle High School.
Yes, we're just starting our camera.
Okay.
Again, the code.
I'm seeing you.
It's not working. Okay.
I'm seeing and hearing you, York Castle.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We're all hearing me?
I can hear you clearly.
Okay, thank you. Make it a rule of life to never regret and to never look back. Regret is an appalling waste of energy. You can't build on it. It's only good for wallowing in. A quote by Kathleen Mansfield Murray, a writer, critic, and modernist, whose belief was that the world must be seriously rethought post-World War I. Honorable adjudicator, my worthy opponents, fellow teammates and all present, good morning. My dear opponents, why should we regret something that was beneficial to the society as a whole? We, the opposition, do not regret the linkage of trade unions to political parties. We believe that the benefits of linking I apologize. We believe that the benefits of linking trade unions to political parties greatly outnumber the minute grievances. In this speech, I aim to highlight the benefits of trade unions aligning to political parties, whether it be the mobilization of the working class, the strengthening of their collective bargaining power, once aligned, or a shared vision for society, which will prove that we, the opposition and the Jamaican people, have absolutely nothing to regret in the linkage of trade unions.
POI.
Not at this time. The proposition, I believe, mentioned that this linkage may also lead to conflicts of interest or the exploitation. Does the proposition therefore suggest that workers cannot be exploited because their trade unions are not linked to political parties? Because it has been proven time and time again that workers can be exploited even if their trade unions are not aligned. The words of Mrs. Mansfield Murray prove truer still, as our society had to be thoroughly reconsidered post-slave labor and indentureship, which was expounded upon by my first speaker, in order for our society to progress into what it is today, which will be expounded upon by my third speaker. Given the favorable outcome of the link between trade unions and political parties, both entities maintain the aspiration of the working class as they aimed, I apologize, my apologies. As both entities maintain the aspirations of the working class, as they aim to translate the demands of trade unions into broader political agendas. The link is effective in mobilizing resources and support for trade union activities. For example, in recent times, the public sector wage negotiations of 2018 saw the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions, or JCTU, engage in strategic mobilization during negotiations with the government over public sector wages. Various instances. Yes, you can go ahead.
Right, so you've miscontextualized the relationship between trade unions and political parties. It's not a mutually beneficial relationship. Political parties mandate what trade unions have to operate, and trade unions either agree or disagree at their own, risk.
I failed to see a question here, so I'll just continue. Various instances in which trade unions collaborated with political parties to mobilize against labor law reforms. These campaigns often involve public awareness, campaigns, rallies, advocacy efforts, and influence policymakers and protect workers' rights. Their organizational capacity to rally the working class have been substantial in shaping election outcomes in Jamaica. Furthermore, the alignment of trade unions with political parties enhances their collective bargaining power by providing access to a broader range of resources.
POI.
All right. We'll invite the timekeeper to pause the time. It seems like your castle has inherited internet challenges from Cornwall and have actually stopped broadcasting. So we will pause the time while we wait for your castle to resolve those issues. And we have lost York Castle, indeed. While we wait on them to join, let me remind you what is at stake here. The teams are playing for a chance to enter the grand finals of this competition, which will be held
Good
on
afternoon.
November 20. Hi, York Castle. Welcome. We have stopped your time. We paused
I'm
your
so
time.
sorry. Our internet dropped for a second.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Your time has been paused. When you are ready, you may continue your speech and we will resume your time.
Okay. So I think, okay, I'll resume now. A notable example is the Jamaica Bauxite and Alumina Workers Union in the bauxite industry. The alignment with a political party gives unions a unified and amplified voice in negotiations, influencing employment terms and conditions. The political backing adds legitimacy to union demands within a broader socio-political context.
POI.
This not accepted at this time. This symbiotic relationship benefits both parties, as unions contribute to political parties' support base, and the party champions labor rights and workers' interests, ultimately enhancing the overall power of trade unions. Lastly, the link between trade unions and political parties can curate social cohesion in an efficient way by promoting a shared vision for societal progress, and enabling trade unions to actively participate in political processes, allowing them to advocate for the interest of workers. This collaboration can create a unified narrative that emphasizes the importance of workers' rights, economic justice, and social equality. By aligning their goals and strategies, trade unions and political parties can communicate with a powerful message that resonates with a broad section of society. These shared visions are reflected in 1, community outreach programs, 2, participation in national social campaigns, 3, environmental sustainability, 4, gender equality, 5, promotion of inclusive policies, 6, supporting legislations for fair wages and safety nets, 7, not at this time, national wage agreements and social security, 8, health and safety standards, and 9, collaborative disaster relief efforts. Obviously, Mr. Speaker, the link between trade unions and government is extensive and effective in the promotion of social cohesion. None of these would be possible without the link between trade unions and political parties. My opponents, how is not having a link between trade unions and governance beneficial to society? It is imperative that as a society, we do not revel in the possibility of what could have been done differently, especially in things that have happened to be generally beneficial to our society. Therefore, my teammates and I must reaffirm that we do not regret the link between trade unions and political party. The opposition hereby rests.
Thank you very much for that. The opposition speaker, we now invite the third proposition speaker to present the last substantive case for the side, Cornwall College.
Right, good day. Am I audible?
You're audible.
Just to safeguard that, can I actually take off the camera, please?
Yes, I encourage you to.
All right, just to clarify, how much time does the third speaker have?
Third speaker, 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. All right, so I'd like to start off by pointing out that secretly, opposition only really has one benefit in their world. Retracted as soon as trade unions start to go against the shared opinions of the trade unions and political parties, right? So let's go back and recontextualize the relationship between political parties and trade unions as we established in the first speaker's speech, my first speaker's speech, right? It really is a relationship where trade unions at first built up political parties, and political parties kind of diverged from the singular unilateral goal of promoting workers' rights, taking on other goals and other sort of things they want to accomplish, like political notoriety, as my second speaker spoke about. When you have political centered union leaders, they kind of steer away from actually safeguarding workers' rights and kind of focus on gaining political notoriety. So there isn't a unanimous, kind of argument between political parties and trade unions to support workers' rights. In fact, most times, because of the dichotomy between political parties, it's kind of incomprehensible to believe that both political parties are dedicated towards ensuring workers' rights when they're so closely against each other. How can you have a BITU being promoting workers' rights and a National Workers Union promoting workers' rights, and they're somehow divergent in their political beliefs? That doesn't make any sense, right? So it is more a situation where political parties are, in this instance, preying on the trade unions with political linkages to help support them. As he mentioned in the second speech, as soon as the trade union kind of diverges to help its own people in a way that is not supporting the political party turns on them. And where there are trade unions with strong political linkages, that can be the end of the trade union. However, where there are trade unions that have independence and their own way of formulating their own policies and strategies, that doesn't mean the end of them. It can actually mean they're bolstering. When trade unions have the independence to do their own thing, they don't have to worry about the consequences of diverging in belief from political parties, right? So we see where we are better able to operate, we're better able to ensure workers' rights. Why is this? Because we have more workers on our side. If I say I am whatever party, all whatever party persons are allowed here, you will have less workers joining. Similarly, when you have employers saying, I don't like that party, I don't like that party, the bargaining power of the trade union becomes lesser. And we heard that in the second speech as well. I'll take that POI very quickly.
Yes. So are there any statistics to back up your claim?
You want statistics? Okay, let's take, for example, the situation with the JTA arguing for public sector pay wages. How were they able to do this? They're able to do this because they're politically neutral. Let's say the JTA was aligned with the JLP. The JLP is the ruling government. You think the ruling government is going to go against their own policies, disadvantaging workers in order to help the trade union that they have linkages with? No, they won't. And as we said in the first speaker's speech, as soon as election time calls, they're going to focus on what makes them profitable, what makes them marketable. So if it is no longer marketable to spend money on workers, best believe the political party will turn its back right in the trade unions. So where are they able to secure workers' rights? On the side where independence is secured. I'll take another POI if you have one. Right, so there are no POIs. So I'll go back again at kind of peeling back opposition's case. What benefits are they left with when we take away the benefits of governmental support? They have none, because all political party linkages do is polarize, they kind of create conflict within the trade unions, and they encourage persons not to work with them. This internal structure cannot be supported. And if you need further proof that the idea of dichotomy and argument and contention will diffuse into trade unions, then we'll take, for example, the fact that we mentioned the school boards in the first and second speaker's speech. Something as small and insignificant as a school board gets totally impactful to hundreds of thousands of children. They're very, very heavily politicized, right? Because political parties are bigger than school boards. Naturally, also, political parties are a bit bigger than trade unions. They are in charge of both governments and public agencies and bodies. Therefore, the bigger thing will subsume into the smaller thing. That's basic arithmetic. However, I think the judges have understood that, and considering my time, I will rest. But the proposition has won.
Thank you very much. From the third proposition speaker, we now invite the third opposition speaker to close out the substantive part of this debate.
Yes, good afternoon. Hope you guys can see me in the frame. Holly?
Indeed.
All right. So,
your castle, your connection glitches.
coming together.
Hold on, your castle. So your connection is glitching as well. So we'll afford you the same accommodation. So we're allowing you as well to turn off your camera.
Okay, all right, thank you. Can I please have a minute? Just rectify
Indeed.
this. Try and rectify it at least.
You can go ahead. So you can proceed with just your audio. You don't have to turn on your video.
No. Okay.
All right. So you guys are hearing me? Oh, you said all right. You said it's glitching, so I should turn off the video.
Yeah, you can make, we are allowing you to make that decision.
Okay, all right. I'll turn it off. Okay. All right. Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success. Words by American industrialist and business tycoon Henry Ford. Distinguished adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, government members, and all those viewing here today, I kindly greet you all. I open this closing argument by reiterating the stance of this House. That is, this House does not regret the linkage of trade unions to political parties. Now, in terms of rebutting, the first speaker would have mentioned that bargaining would be possible, would be possible without political parties being linked to trade unions, which is true. But is it possible to legally make changes without political influence or interference? Would it not be better to have support of a group with similar interests who has the authority? No, I proceed by mentioning this. It is a fact that both trade unions and the government, which are formed from the very basis of a political party, have similar goals and interests. Hence, the linkage of both help to shape policies which benefit the working class. You would have heard background and points all supporting this from my face. But the question I ask is, how can we disregard the linkage of the government to trade unions when the government is one of the largest? Both groups would be a gross dereliction of duty. The linkage between trade unions and political parties can lead to improved communication channels. Not accepted. It can lead to improved communication channels between trade unions and the government, fostering dialogue and collaboration with other interest groups. In fact, in the past, we have seen where it has done exactly so. By this, I raise my first artifact. In a JIS article published on March 16, 2012, titled, Government Committed to Working Closely with Trade Unions, the Minister of Labor and Social Security at the time, Honorable Derek Kellier, says the government is committed to closely accepted.
How would you explain the existence of other advocacy groups like the JAMP, the IC, and the NIA that don't have political party linkages but still are able to influence government and other policies? If it's impossible to do things without political power, how do you explain them?
It doesn't really matter to me. Well, not to me. It doesn't matter because even though they may claim to be politically neutral, that might not be the case. It's not really the case because the workers inside these groups, they have their own political views. I continue. Yes, so the article further mentioned a comment by Mr. Kellier. It read, this government has taken the stance to widen and deepen the dialogue and collaboration with the union movement and all other stakeholders in the productive process as we strive to improve our competitiveness in the region and the world. This is a prime example of how trade unions and political parties collaborate their efforts and through communication strive to improve the quality of workers in the region. Yet, a more recent JS article dated November 12, 2023 by Latanya Linton titled, Trade Unions Urged to Leverage Their Influence to Shape Public Policy, outlined an event in which Minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister with oversight for skills and digital transformation, Senator Dr. the Honorable Dana
Hello?
All right, so we have lost your castle. We will be pausing their time once more.
She mentioned that there are examples of unions doing this. So we
York
have
Castle,
around the
York,
world. Is it?
York, just go back about 15 seconds in your speech. We lost you there. We paused the time at that point.
Okay, all right. So yes, Senator Dr. the Honorable Dana Morris Dixon said trade unions should leverage their influence to shape public policy. Dr. Morris outlined that trade unions should advocate for social systems that support lifelong learning, provide social security nets for transitional periods, and ensure that the digital economy does not exacerbate inequality, but instead provide opportunities for all. She mentioned that there are examples of unions doing this. So we have seen it around the world, and that's what's going to happen here. This speaks for itself. Our political leaders and members are seen communicating with trade unions, which is wholesomely vital to the relationship between both. The linkage between trade unions and political parties also sees unified, not accepted, sees to unified advocacy. Linking with political parties allows trade unions to align their efforts with broader social and political movements, fostering solidarity and collective action in advocating for social justice and equitable treatment of workers within a larger social context. For instance, of the affiliated trade unions in the UK, Unison, one of the 11 parties affiliated with the Labour Party, told the party that we need a fundamental shift of fair power and prosperity back into workers' hands. At a Labour Party's National Policy Forum on the weekend of July 23rd.
It is, and that is indeed time. Thank you very much to the third speaker from York Castle. We'll now pause for a minute. Legislators can perfect their reply speeches, after which we will invite the opposition reply speaker from York Castle to close out the debate, to conclude the debate for the side York Castle. So we will pause for 1 minute. All right, 1 minute has elapsed. We now invite the reply speaker from York Castle to conclude the debate for the side opposition. That's the reply speaker from the team York Castle High.
Do apologize. We're having a little bit of difficulty. Could you give us a minute? Just not a minute. Just give us a second, please.
All right. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Okay. Thanks. Okay.
Honorable adjudicator, my worthy opponents, fellow teammates, and all present, good morning, good afternoon once again, rather. As the opposing team's second speaker, I'd like to address some key points raised by our counterparts. And firstly, I'd like to touch on the JTA, the quotation mentioned by the JTA, and their so-called neutrality. While neutrality, by definition, is having no decided opinion or having no kind of bias. But while the JTA might not formally acknowledge an aligned political party, they will take political stances and therefore are not neutral. I'll continue. Secondly, the opposition had mentioned that the political parties will consume the trade unions or compromise the individuality or the independence of a trade union. We do not believe it is so, as there's no evidence to back up what would have been already said, or there's no evidence in our society to prove whether or not this is true. So, thirdly, the opposition had stated that when trade unions align with a specific political party, they may find it challenging to get out there and to explore alternative political options. This is important to note that by aligning to a political party, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is the final, this is done and done. It's just alignment. And as the political parties change and as different political parties come into power, we have to compromise and we have to negotiate. This is on behalf of the workers. So we have to make sure that that is in place and we can always go back and forth as a trade union to different political parties. It's all in the interest of the workers. And with that, I'll close off the opposition risks.
Thank you very much for that. For the reply speaker, from the reply speaker to your castle, we now invite the reply speaker from Cornwall College to conclude this debate. Once more, that is the reply speaker from Cornwall College. We're asking for you to take the stage and to conclude, to close out this debate. As the reply speaker from Cornwall.
Okay, thank you. Like to start a timer, so I'll begin in. Hold on, how much time do I have again?
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so first of all, the opposition is very delusional to even believe that the political parties will always have the workers' best interest at heart, or even believe that they'll use these linkages to help the workers succeed. It's completely delusional. I like to start by getting into my speech. First of all, political parties were made after trade unions. Yes, trade unions worked properly before, and so we know that they can work properly without them. The third speaker kind of said, "Oh, it's impossible to work without political linkage." But what they mistake is the mistake between linkage and cooperation. Linkage is not cooperation, right? There are strong ties that influence trade union values and beliefs, as we compounded for 3 speeches. So the third speaker's point was just secondly, union will still triumph any benefits that side opposition tries to put forward. As I was saying before, it's the complete other way around, right? Political parties are being helped by trade unions, not the other way around. Political parties
gain clout, and the trade unions actually with the political party decision, and then they don't. Let me get into and yes. So getting into some clashes. Opposition, we heard that political linkages help legislation be passed, but this benefit is completely erased if the trade union does no longer wishes to align with the political party. Yes. Now the threat of them falling down trumps any benefit that opposition tries to put forward. And they're going to be operating at the will of the party. Now, what you hear from us is that the independence of trade unions allows them to pass laws more freely and that trade unions can work independently. They are left to their own devices and they are free to make their own decisions. Oh, remember that trade unions have the workers' interest at heart before anything. Political parties don't, yes? So now, opposition, right? They try to say that with bargaining power and the clash of bargaining power, and as I said before, just to emphasize, political parties existed after trade unions. So that means that we know for a fact that trade unions can work freely without political parties. Now, on the clash of bargaining power, yes, from opposition, you heard that they will somehow get resources because of governmental support, yes, but this will be retracted as soon as they disagree with the government, as soon as they are no longer able to align with the government and start to push the workers' interests at heart. All these resources will be retracted, yes? That's a disadvantage. Now, from proposition, you heard that we are neutral, so we get to benefit more people since we interact with everyone regardless of their political alignment. Yes. And as with that, I'll rest my case, believing that the panel will cast a ballot for side proposition for now.
Thank you very much for that. And that concludes the second semifinals match of the JCSA High School Debate Competition 2023. At this point in time, the judges will excuse themselves to break out room number 2 to have our deliberations, and we will return to you with the results. Indeed. So, judges, we're heading into breakout room 2.
That was an amazing match, York Castle, I have to say.
I believe so too. Hi, York Castle.
Hello.
Oh, that was such a good match. Our team, we really thought that was such a good match. I love the guys' teams. It really caught us by surprise.
Thank you, you as well. It was a really interactive debate and we really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
York Castle. Who's your coach?
Our coach is Miss Lorraine Letts.
Ah, yes. Okay. Is she here?
Yes, I'm right.
Yes, she is.
Hi.
Hello, sir.
Congrats on the match today. It was very good.
She's coming.
Yes, sir.
And I'm just saying, congrats. Your kids did amazing.
As always, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the adjudicators are back and we have made our decision as to the team that will be advancing to the finals to join Montego Bay High School for Girls in the finals of the Jamaica Civil Service Association debating competition. The team that will be joining Montego Bay High School in the finals has been decided via unanimous decision. So before we get into that, what did we hear out of the debate? So the debate hinged primarily about the nature of the relationship that exists between trade unions and political parties. There were, of course, other ideas that came out of the debate, but the crux and the most meaty substance and argumentation all came from that clash, that idea. What is the nature of relationship between a trade union and a political organization? We heard from the team, Cornwall College, that the nature is somewhat akin to a predatory one, not a mutually beneficial relationship. We heard from the team in Cornwall College that when a trade union aligns itself too strictly to a political party, then that political party exercises a significant amount of control over that trade union at the detriment of its workers. We heard that there's often a dichotomy, a clash of ideologies intrinsically between a trade union and a political party. And as much as the trade union exists to ensure that its workers have the best outcomes, the best working conditions, the greatest salaries, and all the other benefits that we know that trade unions would have had, that we'd have heard from this debate and other debates, we all know what trade unions do and the benefits that they present. We heard that the trade union's ability to exercise and to push and to lobby and to demand those kinds of benefits and conditions is going to be undermined by the political party, because the mandate of the political party fundamentally clashes with that of the trade union. And when a trade union is intrinsically aligned to a political party, then that political party can stifle that kind of growth. But we also heard from the team in York Castle that the relationship isn't so predatory. The relationship is a kind of mutualistic relationship, because trade unions need political parties in order for their policies to be enacted. We heard a lot of ideas coming up from York Castle that we get social cohesion, and more importantly, the judges thought is that it legitimizes the trade unions. The political parties and the linkage between them and the trade union legitimizes the trade union, so that when they make a statement or a demand or a question, then it provides more meat, more substance, there's more backative behind that request. And we thought that was a good job from the team on York. We heard as well that trade unions in and of themselves cannot enact policies, and so they need the help of the political parties in order for those policies to be enacted. We heard from York Castle that it enhances collective power, and again that it legitimizes the trade unions. We heard from the first speaker that they are linked historically, and all the benefits that we get from trade unions are because of politics. When we weighed the two arguments, the clashes that came out of this, the judges thought that Cornwall College would have won on that particular clash, on the substance, on the meat of the issue. And this was helped exponentially through the multiple points of information that were provided by Cornwall College. Cornwall College asked a question, and we thought this was an excellent use of a POI. Cornwall College posited that there exist networks and agencies that are in the Jamaican society without political affiliations. JAMP, for example, that do not have any affiliations with the government and are yet still able to enact some substantive amount of change, which we thought was an excellent POI, that we thought that the team in York Castle High should have done a more sufficient job in trying to undermine, simply saying that JAM probably has some political affiliations, we don't think was sufficient to denounce the precision, the precise POI that was asked from Cornwall College. And what the POI served to do was to bolster the idea that that the trade unions do not need political parties in order to get the outcomes that they want. So in a question of weighing the harms versus the good, the question of, okay, trade unions need political parties in order to provide legitimacy and actually get policies enacted. And the argument from Cornwall College that trade unions will be subservient to the mandate of the political party. The POI, which then explains that trade unions don't need political parties in order to be effective, we thought is one that would have tipped the debate just a little bit further in Cornwall College's favor. Even without that point of information, we thought that the idea that trade unions objectively limit trade unions being aligned to political parties, limit a section of the Jamaican populace from wanting to align with a particular trade union, and that it is important for trade unions to have the maximum amount of members in order to ensure that they can do what it is that they need to do through collective bargaining. We heard Cornwall College say, when we have political parties and trade unions being aligned, the individuals who want to be a part of a trade union or should be a part of a trade union will be hesitant to do so because of the overt knowledge that that trade union belongs to either JLP or PNP. And we thought that as well was a substantive argument from the team, Cornwall College. Indeed, there were many more ideas that came up in this debate. But we thought that at the end of it all, when the judges assessed what we heard in the debate, that the team that will be moving on to the finals of the JCSA High Schools Debate Competition 2023, sponsored by Rubies, is the team Cornwall College. Congratulations, Cornwall College, and an excellent and valiant effort to the team, York Castle High.
Good job, York Castle. Amazing efforts.
Indeed, York Castle.
Thank you, we appreciate it. Good job.
And the best speaker for this debate was the third speaker from Cornwall College. Congratulations again, Cornwall College. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have concluded the semifinals. This means that the teams moving on to the finals of this competition are going to be the Montego Bay High School for girls and the Cornwall College, and they will be debating the motion. This House believes that a non-unionized workforce is a significant contributor to workers migrating overseas. Promises to be an excellent finals match. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we say have a lovely rest of your day.